Hey, what's up everybody? It's Ronnie George here, and today I'm going to be talking about the entire home buying process. And not only that, I'm going to break it down into 3 easy steps. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so the home buying process, this is a process that I'm going to take you from the beginning all the way to the ending, from the time that you decide to buy a home all the way to the time that you've moved in and what to expect next. So let's go ahead and jump right into number 1, and that is decide. Basically, this is where you actually decide that you want to buy a home. Some of you are right here, right now, trying to decide if you want to buy a home, or some of you are currently in a home and being like, I wonder if I should buy another one. Right now is in that mental space of where you're thinking about buying and you're weighing all the options. So when it comes to deciding to buy, there's the next natural steps of you're like, all right, I am going to buy a house. So what do you do next? Well, there's a debate on if you go to start looking at properties or if you should get a pre-approval. Here's my recommendation. I'm going to basically tell you to get pre-approved, focus on your criteria, and then understand your timeline. So let's talk about that. So pre-approval, the reason you want to get pre-approved first, or at least have an idea, you only want to do this if you don't know what you can afford or what your monthly payment's going to be, or you have no clue. This way, if you talk with a lender, they're going to be able to get you an idea of how much your monthly note's going to be, what type of loan you can do, how much you're going to have to put down, and then you can really start shaping that idea of like, wow, buying a home is really an option, and here's how much it can actually be. So you're like, all right, I can do this, and then you start forward with that. But if you have an idea of how much you can afford, what your monthly note's going to be, you can use quick mortgage calculators online and they can give you an idea of it. You can go ahead and start paying attention to your criteria, because you don't need to get your credit pulled right now if you need to find that house first. So get pre-approved if you don't really have a clue of where you stand. Use a mortgage calculator online if you kind of have a general idea of what your income is, your credit score is, and things like that. Now let's start focusing on your criteria and your timeline. So your criteria. This is what you're going to do is break out a piece of paper or your notes section in your phone and write down your must-haves. Things that you absolutely must have in a new home. Whether it's 1 to 2 things or it's a whole list of things, whatever it is, I want you to write them out and then number them on a scale of 1 to 10. Basically, if this new house did not have those things, your items that are a 10 are not going to be sacrificed. Everything that's rated below that, you're probably going to be like, I could do without it. It would be nice to have it, but it's not a big deal if I don't have it. So say for instance, if you're like, I have to have 4 bedrooms, or I have to have an upgraded kitchen because I'm tired of all these old appliances and this dated layout. I have to have an open concept area, or I have to have a fenced in yard. Whatever it may be, you need to write down your must-have so you know what's truly important to you, because when it comes to finding a home, you're going to try and find a home that matches your must-haves and your top priority criteria. Now the next one is timeline. Get an idea of when you would like to be in a new home buy. What is realistic? You know, are you currently in a lease right now? Are you able to break that lease and can find a new home and move into it by a specified period of time? Do you have a house that you need to sell and you have to do that first before you can buy another one? Is this your first time buying a home, so you're staying at home with your parents or you're with your in-laws or whatever it may be, you're just renting an apartment with no, a month-to-month type lease, you're able to move in any time. All those are different circumstances and have very different timelines. So you need to evaluate where you are and set a realistic timeline on when you can actually be in a new home buy, because it takes an average of 30 to 45 days to go through the home buying process. So if you found a home today, it would still take you about 30 to 45 days before you could actually be in it. And typically, the average person will take about a month or a couple weeks to search all available properties, go see some, write, negotiate, get under contract, and actually make it happen when they're actually serious about it. So set some timelines of when you're going to start looking at properties, when you want to be in a house buy. And that's also if everything works out perfectly. Have a backup plan. Plan ahead and think that, well, what happens if this contract doesn't go through? Or if I can't find a house in this specified period of time, what do I do next? Because if you don't plan for those things that could go wrong, you're really going to be bogged down and stressed out if you can't find a house in the right timeline. Or if you found a house, then things start falling apart and the inspection goes bad, the appraisal goes bad, and then you're like, what do I do now? So plan ahead and anticipate them things that they probably won't always go smoothly. But if they do, it's great. You have a little extra cushion. But if not, at least you planned ahead and you have that extra, week or two that you can get back, in the market, find something else, or handle unexpected things that come up. So I hope that helps. So number one, just a quick recap: decide to buy. Get pre-approved if you have no clue of where you stand and you're ready to buy, or use a mortgage calculator, get in an idea, write down your criteria and your must-haves of what you absolutely have to have, and then go ahead and set a timeline of when you'd like to be in a new home buy. So let's move on to number two, and that is find. You're actually going to find a house, and here's how you do it. Most of the time, you're going to find it on the MLS, Zillow, or off the market. So on the MLS is the multi-list system. That's what we as real estate agents use to input listings and distribute those to other real estate agents. And then Zillow, Trulia, and Realtor.com take that information and then export it and put it on their site so you can see. So realtors will see it first, will see it live and instantaneous, and then usually about 24 hours, maybe 48. Then it'll be on Zillow and Trulia and things like that, and then people will get notification. That's usually how it works. So if you're browsing Zillow and you're browsing Trulia and you see a new property and you click that you want to contact that agent or you want to work with that agent, what's going to happen is Zillow is going to send out an email blast and a phone blast to all the agents in the area that are paying for Zillow leads, and there is no telling who's going to answer that phone. So that person might not be that listing agent, and they might not have a clue about the property, and they might not be a good real estate agent. So just know that going in. So just use those as resources to get information. I'd highly recommend you to find a real estate agent, work with them, and use these sites to kind of browse around and check things out. And anytime you want to know more about it, just reach out to your real estate agent or share it with them and say, hey, I'd love to know a little bit more about this property. When can we go see it? Pick one agent, stick with them, work with them. If that agent sucks, then fire them, get a new agent, and then repeat the process. Agents are completely free to work with when it comes to buyers. So if you're working with an agent that's not good, then you deserve to work with a good quality agent that's going to represent you, because as we mentioned before, things can go a little crazy and they can get unexpected, and you don't want to work with an agent that has no clue of how to deal with difficult situations. So that's my advice on finding a good agent and why it's actually important, and not to just pick someone just because they answer the phone. So Zillow and off the market. So what I mean by off the market is you'll probably see Facebook Marketplace, you'll see ForSaleByOwner.com, you might drive around in different areas and see for sale by owner signs. Those are technically off the market because they're sold not with a real estate agent. So they're not on an active market which starts the clock on being on the market, because there's a huge difference. When something is off the market, it does not have the exposure that it does when it is listed with a real estate agent. So they don't consider it on the market. Because just because someone has a sign in the yard does not mean that everybody is seeing it. Only a handful of people are going to see it. So you can deal with those people directly, but just know that more than likely all those people really know how to do is advertise it and then get you a buyer. They might not have sold but one or two houses in their lifetime, and just because they've done that, they don't know everything about the process. So again, if things go a little crazy or get a little hairy in any type of situations, if there's repairs that need to be done or appraisal's bad or title issues, they're not necessarily going to know how to handle it. Some might. It's very rare that some people are good at this, but they just haven't done it enough. That's why real estate agents are very good to use, because we do it constantly. We do, 10, 20 deals a month, so we're just familiar with it. This is just like another day at work. So that's the importance of using a real estate agent when you deal with an off-the-market property. And most of the time, those for sale by owners have no problem with an agent representing you to get it. So again, use a real estate agent to buy properties that are off the market so you can at least have representation. Let those sellers represent themselves and let that agent fight for you and get you a good deal. So that's usually how that works. And if you do happen to find a good deal and they don't want to use a real estate agent, what I'd recommend you to do is get a buy-sell agreement and connect with the local real estate attorney and your lender, whoever you're going to use to buy the property, and I guess just cross your fingers and hope that everybody stays on those timelines and executes it and things like that. But other than that, that's going to be your best case scenario. That's all you need is your lender and a real estate attorney, and they'll try and take you all the way through. So let's go into buy. That wasn't too optimistic, was it? So number 3, buy. We've decided to buy. We know where we're going to look to find it, and now let's say that you've actually found what you're looking for. I'm going to talk about the negotiations, the entire process, as well as closing and all the unexpected expenses that kind of go along with it during and after. So let's talk about negotiations. This is where real estate agents earn their keep. They're going to negotiate for you and make sure that you don't overpay for a property. They're going to check the comps in the area and make sure that the price that you're buying is actually what the home is worth and that it's not overpriced, so that way you actually get a good deal. They're going to make sure that your closing costs are paid for, or at least something is contributed in your benefit and you're not just buying it and not getting anything for it, as well as negotiate other little caveats, like if you want something to remain with the property, or if you want a homeowner warranty, or if you have certain requirements that you would like the seller to do. That agent is going to make sure that those things are in there, and you're going to be negotiating back and forth. Again, your agent is like a representation of you. They're like a lawyer in the courtroom, but they're kind of more like your lawyer out in the real world. They're going to go and they're going to fight for you and get you a good deal. So that's when it comes to negotiations. So let's just say that you've come to terms, meaning that you presented an offer, the seller and the other agent have accepted it, they've gotten it back to you, you have a contract. Now you're going to start the process. What naturally happens is usually a 3-step process, and that is basically the negotiations, the inspection, appraisal, and the close. So now, once it is accepted, you're going to start your inspection. The clock starts. Once everybody signs, you're going to have the opportunity to inspect the property further. You're going to call a licensed home inspector. You can call an HVAC technician, a plumber, an electrician, a friend of a friend of a friend. It doesn't matter. This is your time to really dig into the house and learn everything it is about, that could be wrong and that is actually really good. You're going to make sure to look at the slab. You're going to look at the area, make sure it's not in a flood zone. And if it is, if it's not going to flood, and if it is in a flood zone, you need an elevation certificate, so that way you can make sure that your insurance policy isn't sky high. So those are all those little things that you can do during the inspection period. You're going to go over the house with a fine-tooth comb, I think that's how you say it, and make sure that everything is good and in working order. And if it's not, then you renegotiate again. And then you say, hey, we want these things fixed. Or actually, these are minor things. We only want you to fix these really important things. Or if everything's great, you're like, hey, we love it. Let's keep moving forward. After the inspection's done, you're going to do the appraisal. Your agents should reach out to your lender and say, all right, the inspection's good. Let's order that appraisal. And then they'll get that appraisal ordered. You'll pay for that, usually out of pocket. It's usually about $500-600. It could be a little more, a little less. They pay that. The inspector goes out, and they then do a secondary inspection and then make sure everything is good. It's not as detailed as the personal inspection, but they want to make sure that the lender is going to be investing their money into a quality product. Essentially, the appraiser is almost like the home inspector is for you. They're kind of inspecting it to make sure that the lender's going to be putting their money into a good property because they're the one financing it. So after that appraisal is done, and if everything is smooth, then you go to closing. And then at closing, all you're going to do is basically title is going to be transferred over to you, and then you're officially going to be the new owners of a home. So after that, that's when all the fun starts, because then you're going to be moving, you're going to be coordinating, you're going to be setting up every single thing when it comes to your utilities, any storage, setting up new schools, setting up new mailing addresses, and all those unexpected things. So go ahead and plan for those when you're doing your negotiations. Make sure that you have money set aside to where you're going to be putting deposits down for utilities and setting up new things in your area like cable and electricity and all that stuff like that. People don't think of those until it comes time to do it. So that's just a quick down and dirty version of how to buy a home, the entire 3-step process, broken down and condensed and simplified for you. I hope it has been helpful. If you have any comments, I'd love to hear them. Go ahead and click them or type them in below on other topics you'd like to see and more real estate related products. I thank you for your time. Again, my name is Ronnie George with the George Group, and I hope you have a good day.
Change